Hey guys, so we want to get into this story with Rodney Hinton. Now, if you guys don't recall who Rodney Hinton is, he is the father of the teenager that was pum by the police. Now, y'all know this is YouTube, so certain things we can't say, but he was killed by the police. He was shot, pretty much. That's what happened. And his father, Rodney Hinton, is actually going to be pleading. To say that he's mental, in some kind of mental capacity. But what I am learning is that his father actually has a mental disability in which he had already been taking medication for. So, isn't it crazy how a person with a mental disability who has had a mental disability, who was already taking medication for a mental disability, is being tried in a capital murder case? And they're not even trying to pretty much work with this guy. He had a mental disability. In the world that we live in, the only person that's allowed to have a mental disability when they do something wrong, I guess, is an old white person. Because let's get into what Rodney attorney has to say.
I sat down for a one-on-one interview with Hinton's defense attorney, Clyde Bennett. We talked about everything from the deadly shooting of Hinton's son and his mental state at the time of the deadly crash to Bennett taking him on as a client. What was going on with him when he was behind the wheel? Is it your contention that, do you admit that he was behind the wheel? Because officers said that he was behind the wheel. There's video of him behind the wheel, and that they took him out and, in fact, triple checked to make sure that he was the one that was behind the wheel.
Based on my acquaintance with this case, it appears that he was a person that was driving a car.
Okay.
Yes.
In mental capacity, where was he?
He was out of his mind. He was not in his right mind. Let me spell that out. That means that I'm doing something, but I don't know the wrongfulness of what I'm doing because I'm out of touch with reality. That's what insanity is. You can be insane and still present like a physically normal person, and you won't know that that person is insane, but for their actions and but for an evaluation of their brain. This man had a diagnosed, documented mental illness that is recognized by healthcare providers, and he was receiving medication for the mental diagnoses. That constitutes a defect at this point.
So this is going to be not guilty by reason of insanity?
Potentially, yes. That's basically from what I've seen so far, and I haven't gotten all of the evidence. Really, I haven't gotten any evidence from the government. I've got it from my investigator. But from what I've seen so far, this is what it appears to be. Yes.
Okay, I want to back up on something that you initially said. You said unjustifiably killed. His son was unjustifiably killed.
Is anybody paying attention to this reporter and her nonverbal communication? We simply live in a world where these people think that they are so much better than anybody who isn't pale. Because let's just be honest, they're not white. These are pale folk. Okay? They're pale folk that want a tan because they don't even like their color. But do you see the nonverbal communication when he says that guilty by insanity? I mean, girl, are you dumb? When people are not operating with the full deck and they are mentally off, that is what it's called. But what you're seeing here is a pale person who feels like a brown person, took out a pale person, and they need to go to jail for the rest of their lives. This is the mentality that I'm talking about. Look at this creature and how she looks when the attorney tells her, based on the facts that he is familiar with, this guy is insane. He's going to plead that he mentally is not right. She can't take it.
People would take issue with that as well. And that is going to be something that we're going to be looking at, because
who is going to take issue with it? The pale weird looking people like you, because if a person is mentally, you know, incapacitated, I mean, we don't really care. I mean, we want people to receive the justice that they should. So who's going to take issue? Elvira? Because that's what the hell you look like.
There is 6 seconds of very shaky video.
Right.
So what is your contention there?
Now she goes into his son, and why is people saying that the son was unjustifiably killed? People are saying this because there is multiple angles, bird brain, of the video. So there's not one angle of the video. There were multiple officers. So one video is not going to really show the depiction of everything that happened, because keep in mind, you have to get all of the videos from every angle from every officer. They were not provided. Now, I did do a video where it did provide a better angle, and the kid was shot 3 times. So that is not somebody that's trying to stop someone, because one time would have shot him. The kid was executed. In fact, the person who killed him was an ununiformed officer. So you don't even know what the kid was even thinking at the time that the officer was chasing him, because they lied and said that it was a uniformed officer when it actually wasn't. So she takes an issue with a lot of things. One of the things Elvira takes an issue with is this father being able to plead insanity when he has a medical history of having mental problems. Okay. Then she takes an issue with people saying that the kid, this was a kid, keep in mind, was killed. It wasn't unjustified. It was not justified. It wasn't justified. He was running away in the other direction. So tell me, how is it justified for you to kill somebody that's running away from you and you shot them 3 times, which is a clear indication that you executed them and you did it on purpose?
When I say unjustifiably killed, I'm speaking through the lens and eyes of my client.
Okay.
So in his mind, when he sees the video and he sees his son being killed, he thinks it's unjustifiable. It's horrific. It's tragic. Do you know what it's like to see your a son or daughter being killed?
No, thank God I don't.
Your bloodline? I know you don't. I didn't mean to.
She says, oh God, I don't. Of course, lady, you don't know what it's like. You probably don't know anybody who has went through this. So you should just shut the F up forever.
When I said that, I have a son. If I saw my son being killed by somebody, I don't know how I would behave. And I don't have a mental history. Well, some might argue that I do, but I don't. So my point is, that type of event would trigger a normal person, let alone a person with a history of mental illness.
So that incident alone would trigger somebody who's operating regularly. So imagine what that does to a person who's already mentally they have mental stuff going on, which I understand exactly what this attorney is saying. But what she is really saying is she don't care. She doesn't care about anything, because these pale folk don't care about what they do or how other people in the world are treated. They, for some reason, think they funky pale asses have some kind of superior stance in this world, even though they the palest. They're the most funniest looking people. I mean, let's just be honest. They want color. I mean, you lay out in the sun to get color, but yet you think you're better.
Can you walk me through that a little bit more? Taking into account what the family has said in your investigation as to what happened at that point. So he watched the video. He had to be driven home because he was so distraught. He was taken back to wherever that was, wherever they watched the tape.
To get his vehicle.
To get his vehicle.
Correct.
And then at that point, did he go straight over to UC?
He's going home.
He was going home.
Which would take you that route.
Okay. So he was going home, but on the way home is when he took a detour and went to UC.
No, that is not a detour.
Okay, what was it?
That's on the way home.
Okay, so he's driving on the way home past UC.
Correct.
And what happens?
There's a claim that when he was on Martin Luther King Drive, he stopped his car and he accelerated and struck a police officer, or excuse me, Hamilton County Deputy Sheriff. That's the claim, and that's what the video depicts.
And tell me more about that investigation, your side and what the family says and what he says about that.
The family doesn't know what happened then because they were not with him. So, but based on the information that I have, that is a claim that is made by the government. Now, have I verified for a fact that that has actually happened? No, because I haven't seen all of the discovery. But based on what I've seen, that is the claim.
Okay.
What I do know is his state of mind, based on speaking to family members and based on speaking to him.
And you've talked to him since?
I try to.
Does he talk?
I can't
without
disclose,
giving us any information.
I would be giving you attorney-client privilege,
okay,
especially when not guilty by reason of insanity or competence is at issue for me to discuss whether or not I believe he was competent. I'm not going to get into that.
Okay. Now, let me just say, this conversation was about an hour long. And if you're sitting at home and you're thinking the question, I probably asked that one. So it's coming up. Okay.
I don't know, y'all. So y'all let me know what y'all think. Like I said, his attorney as well as himself, they are entering a not guilty plea by reason of insanity. And I believe that they are going to win. Keep in mind, this isn't a person who, just decided that he had a mental issue. This is a man with already an ongoing issue. So hopefully, everything works out and he get to plead not guilty by mental insanity because he does have an issue. Isn't it crazy how the world works? The pale dusties feel like everything that applied to them just don't apply to us.